I got my red dress on tonight, dancing in the dark.
My mistake. This is the thing I regret the most. Okay, not the most, but enough to write it down and let everyone know what a fool I was. But let's start from the beginning. First meeting. Try to picture me. A 28-year-old divorced woman with no job, no apartment, and a fear of driving, moving to the capital to start over. A few hundred in my pocket and not a single real idea in my head. Light hair fried by bleach, falling onto my shoulders, and pale eyes. Fine, they're blue, but not bright. Consider them almost colorless. I weigh about 60 kilos at 165 centimeters, and this is the best shape I've ever been in. Not because I've got toned legs or abs, I was just not eating enough. And in this glorious state, I move in with my older sister into her husband's house with their 3 children. Hello, new life. Colin, that's my brother-in-law, owns an art gallery, and by 40, he'd not only built a house and fathered a son, 3 actually, but also collected a solid network and reputation. That's exactly what I was counting on when I decided to start with a clean slate. But imagine my surprise when it turned out I wouldn't be made head of the avant-garde hall in his massive gallery. No, I would be serving coffee to visitors at exhibitions. Still, if I put my bad mood aside, I am grateful for the opportunity and the help. And I was ready for anything to claw my way into this new world, even if it currently consisted of handing out coffee and smiling until my face hurt. I'd been living in my sister's cozy little idyll of love for 3 months when Colin told me there was going to be a new exhibition. And this time I'd have to carry not only coffee, but also trays of champagne flutes. The horror. His gallery was often used as a venue for formal events and private parties, but they'd never taken me on as a waiter. Apparently this time, something big was coming up. Big enough that they needed even a clumsy, slow worker like me. Nothing to be proud of, honestly. Everything is always slipping from my hands. That's why I don't serve coffee so much as pour it and slide the cups across the bar. Colin warned me I'd have to be restrained and behave properly because some famous people would be attending. So that evening, I was more nervous than usual. And that's saying something. It was a Friday in mid-September. The exhibition was dedicated to Charles Dickens, and all the paintings, statues, and even fabrics followed the style of the mid-19th century. The staff were dressed accordingly. I wore trousers with suspenders and a loose white shirt, loafers on my feet, and on my head. Well, the cap had disappeared somewhere. The guests were also dressed in the poor London aesthetic, only with a touch of luxury. One woman had a necklace that probably cost as much as the entire gallery, but her dress was slightly torn at the shoulder. Ah, yes, the romanticized poverty look. I noticed him immediately. You'd have to be an idiot not to recognize the actor whose film I'd watched the night before. And he was tall, 2 meters minus maybe 8 centimeters. He wore a white shirt with a narrow tie and a tailored black jacket. Whatever was happening below that point didn't really matter. I couldn't see it anyway. He was towering over all those poor people, and I was constantly being tugged at and asked to bring something sparkling. An hour after the opening, I could no longer feel my feet and felt wrung out like a lemon. The crowd kept growing, and their requests were getting stranger. One woman asked me to bring her a coat made of horsehair. First, I thought she was joking. But when her tone turned nearly hysterical, I decided to pretend I was going off to catch a horse somewhere at the far end of the hall. People are idiots. Drunk people are even bigger idiots. At some point, I lost sight of the actor and even forgot I'd wanted to ask for his autograph. I just went up to the bar to get another order from a mustached man. There were too many people around, too drunk and too cheerful, so I rushed toward the bartender, praying no one would grab my arm again and purr, "Just one more glass, sweetheart." On my left, it suddenly got way too loud for an art event. A couple of men were arguing heatedly, shouting over each other, and the next second, someone's glass went flying toward me. I managed to dodge, but the drink landed all over my snow-white shirt. And then a fight seemed to break out. More glasses went flying. This time I didn't manage to calculate the trajectory of the incoming glass, so I just squeezed my eyes shut and braced for impact. But it never came. Someone's strong arms grabbed me from behind and yanked me out of the line of fire. A tall body covered me, long arms and broad shoulders curling around me and dragging me away from the crowd. When I ended up outside the glass throwing zone, I opened my eyes and saw a pink stain on my shirt. Damn it. And it wasn't even my fault. Are you okay? I heard a voice above my head. I slowly turned my adrenaline-shaking body around and saw him. Him, the famous actor whose movie had winked at me from the screen last night. All right, not at me, but he did wink. And now he was looking at me in confusion, holding my arm. And what did I do? The idiot that I am? I just walked away to the bathroom. Silently. Moron. I could have thrown myself at his neck. Okay, no, I couldn't. I rushed into the first restroom and started examining the stain on my shirt. I was flustered, not that it's an excuse, but the only thing I could think was, Colin is going to kill me if he sees me like this. And then, the next second, I saw those eyes again. Is he stalking me? Ha! Dream on. You still haven't answered me. Are you okay? This time he was smiling a little. He probably decided I was the local lunatic and clearly in need of help. And I, like a real lunatic, just stared at him instead of answering. He was perfect. Tall, solid, as if he'd been carved out of stone. Even through the fabric, you could see the lines of his body. Green eyes, a sharp nose, and butterfly lips. A piercing gaze from under heavy lids and tiny dimples in his cheeks when he stretched his mouth into a half smile and repeated his question. Idiot, just answer him already. Yes, I'm fine, thank you. I turned back to the mirror, once again studying that damned stain on my chest. Do you need help? He was still standing behind me, bothering me with questions I didn't have answers to. Pull yourself together. Yes, I blurted out, surprising myself, and turned to face him. Do you have a spare shirt? What a shame. He smiled broadly, spread his hands, and shook his head. Sorry, no spare shirt. Take yours off, I shot back, and immediately regretted that the glass hadn't actually hit me in the head. He looked at me, still smiling, and started taking off his jacket. If it helps, my shirt is yours, he said. And there it was, a bare chest. Perfection. He held out the shirt, and I had to fight the urge to bury my face in it and inhale. I turned to him again, boldly letting my gaze roam over his abs, the obliques, the flat stomach. His shirt was still hanging in the air between us. Thank you, I can't go back out there looking like this. You really saved me. What the hell was I even babbling? While I was rambling under my breath, the tall, half-naked guy was watching me, grinning wider and wider. On autopilot, I pulled off my dirty shirt. Now I stood in front of him in just my bra, trying to suck in my stomach. I don't have abs like his. Surprisingly, he didn't run away screaming, ugh, disgusting. He just offered to help me put his shirt on. I nodded silently and he started buttoning it up. For the next couple of minutes, I wordlessly tucked his shirt into my trousers. He slipped his jacket back on over his bare chest and didn't forget to retie his tie. I don't think anyone will notice I'm missing half my outfit, he smiled. And like an idiot, I had nothing clever to say. Thank you. I finally managed something coherent. Thank you for saving me, and for the shirt. You'll have to return it, he shot back immediately. I dropped my gaze. That I can do. I'm kidding, he added quickly, chuckling. Anytime. And I did it again, just smiled like an idiot and headed for the cursed restroom door. Wait, he called out. He shouted at me. I turned slowly, like in one of those movies he stars in, and stared again. What's your name? He asked, flashing that killer smile. Bastard. Honestly, could I be any dumber? God forgive me, the only thing I managed was that stupid, All right, nice to meet you, he said, almost laughing. I'm Bill. I know. I sort of threw in his face and ran away. Stupid bit. I didn't see him for the rest of the evening, but I spent all night replaying every mistake I'd made. I scolded myself, cursed myself out, begged the universe never to let me cross paths with that gorgeous guy again. But, as always, nothing went according to plan. Second meeting. My sister loves me more than her own children. That's a fact, and she'll just have to live with it. When I told her the whole story with the actor, she laughed at first, then started scolding me. Yes, I know I wasted a perfect chance to get to know Bill better, but you can't turn back time. However, my crazy sister came up with a way for me to redeem myself in the eyes of the beautiful half-naked man. Long maternity leave does things to people. A week later, the gallery was hosting a performance by some street artists on mopeds or something like that. And this time, according to my unstoppable sister's master plan, I would be a guest, not staff. And if I was lucky enough to run into Bill again, this time I'd make a decent impression. Just like in the movies, right? Colin didn't mind our plan, so nothing stopped me from dressing up and shining at the party. Except me. I don't shine. I wriggled into a black silk slip dress with spaghetti straps. Of course, it was my sister's. I don't own anything like that. Put my hair up, stepped into heels, and left the house. Would have been better if I'd just gone straight to hell, but no. I headed for the gallery. There was no official guest list. Invitations had been sent out, but people only confirmed by actually showing up. So neither I nor Colin nor my sister knew if Bill would come. If he didn't, well, at least I'd stroll around looking pretty among weird people on mopeds. Yes, they really were, riding mopeds through the gallery, shouting things. If anything, I wouldn't be the craziest person there. That's what I was thinking as I wandered through the halls, secretly scanning the crowd for a tall, fair-haired guy with green eyes. After half an hour of sneaky searching, I lost hope. Another half hour later, I decided to go home. I was bored, and the moped crowd was starting to look genuinely dangerous. My sister kept grabbing me. She was there too, overseeing the chaos, and insisted I keep walking around and looking for Bill. No, our whole family isn't crazy, just the women. When I was on the verge of whining from sheer boredom and tired feet, my sister shoved a glass of some cloudy cocktail into my hand and made me down it. And suddenly, the evening wasn't so dull. I hadn't had a drink in a long time, and alcohol worked wonders on me. All my awkwardness and stupidity faded, and I became lively and bold. My ex-husband hated that side of me, so I almost never drank. After the first cocktail came a second, and I started liking the party. The only problem was the lack of air. I don't know what the performance was supposed to be, but there were more and more people. I decided to step outside for some fresh air. September was fairly warm, luckily, but the wide terrace was just as crowded, so I had to push my way through. While I was moving through this herd of either drunk or stoned people, what kind of performance was this? The moped artists started doing stunts, and some of them decided to show off on the terrace, right when I was trying not to drown in the crowd. The next second, a two-wheeled metal thing came speeding toward me, its rider yelling with joy. "Watch out!" I knew that voice. Those hands again? They grabbed me from behind and yanked me away from the moped. He pulled me close, lifting me off the ground and carried me toward the wall. There were a couple of high bar tables and stools there. He half sat on one, still holding me with one arm. "Hi," I said, without turning around. "Hi," he answered, and I heard him draw on a cigarette. His left arm was still wrapped around my waist. Half sitting, half leaning, he held a cigarette in the other hand. I was basically his pocket dog. God forgive me. "I'm starting to think you like saving me," I said. And here we have it, ladies and gentlemen. The alcohol has joined the chat. "I think so too," he said, breathing out smoke and still holding me. "How are you tonight?" I could have said anything. Absolutely anything. Instead, I just nodded. "Who the hell are you nodding at, you idiot? He's behind you." We stood like that in silence for a minute, watching the chaos, and the mopeds hadn't gone anywhere. Neither had the alcohol in my blood. Fortunately, it wasn't making me say anything even dumber. Yet. The boldest thing I managed was to touch Bill's arm, the one that was holding me. and feel how strong it was. "You can let go of me now," I said for some reason. I didn't actually want him to, but I wanted to see his beautiful face and those dimples again. "I can—" He exhaled another cloud of smoke but didn't move his hand. Seconds, maybe minutes passed. We stayed quiet, and then I added, barely audibly, "Let go." Just so we're clear, I did say that. I was not clinging to him like a crazed fangirl. "Don't want to," he murmured. He stubbed out his cigarette, and instead of releasing me, he yanked me around to face him. Now I was standing between his legs, one foot on the ground, the other bent on the stool, and his hands were still on my waist. Or whatever I have in that area. "Hi, He grinned so widely I lit up in response, whether I wanted to or not. "Hi, Bill. Not working tonight?" "Depends what you call work," I said. "For the love of God, shut up. What kind of answer is that?" "You look good," he said, running his gaze from my head to my toes. "That dress suits you better than my shirt." And I just stared at him and smiled. Silently. "Damn it, say something. Can I get you a drink?" Or, no, I blurted out, grabbing his hands. My palms were tingling where they touched him. He was still holding me, watching me with that devouring look. Or maybe I just imagined it. And then he started biting his lower lip. Was that a signal? "What do you want?" he asked. Was he drunk too? Was he drunk? I had no idea what was going on. And instead of saying I wanted to live in his arms forever, drown in his eyes and kiss that perfect mouth, drunken me blurted out the one thing you should never say. "I want to stop feeling like an idiot next to you, but that's exactly how I feel. It's not your fault, it's been so long since someone looked at me like this. So long since I've been in anyone's arms. I haven't felt like a woman in ages. Wanted and beautiful. And you did that with one gesture. I don't know. Maybe they teach you actors how to do that, but it's amazing. You don't even really do anything. And someone becomes a little happier. And I want to feel that longer. That's what I want." I spat it all out in one breath, regretted it 3 times over, and then held my breath, waiting for his reaction. But bravery is not my thing. As soon as he opened his mouth to respond, I tore myself out of his arms and ran. Yes, literally ran. Straight to that same bathroom where I took his shirt and gave him instead of my name. The rest of the evening passed in a blur. And then my sister's hands, this time hers, scooped me up and took me home. Third meeting. A month passed, maybe more, after that night when I embarrassed myself so completely in front of the man of my dreams. The job at the gallery went on, and so did life. A good-looking young artist had started dropping by the exhibitions, showering me with persistent attention. He'd show up with flowers asking me to make the coffee stronger, or bring a drawing where I was supposedly floating in the clouds. He drew weird. My sister didn't mention Bill, and when she watched a movie with him in it, she'd immediately turn it off if I walked into the room. I don't know where she gets that much empathy, but she truly felt sorry for me, even though, if you think about it, I hadn't done anything that catastrophic. It was Halloween, and the gallery was hosting another performance. I didn't just not want to work it, I wanted to erase the word work from my vocabulary altogether. Fortunately, there wasn't any work for me this time anyway. Only guys were supposed to serve. I never really understood Colin's idea there. My sister insisting that Bill definitely wouldn't be there, just like he hadn't appeared for the past month, pushed me to come that night. Once again, I squeezed into a silk dress on thin straps, this time white. My sister has interesting taste. I put on heels, gathered my hair, and skipped the lipstick. I wasn't in the mood, but the young artist had promised me a fun night. Sure, we'll see. No crazy moped people this time. Just black and white outfits, elegant gowns and suits, and the scent of almonds. Everything looked sophisticated and beautiful. The artist didn't leave my side, and at some point it started to seriously annoy me. I couldn't be alone for even a minute. As expected, there was no sign of Bill, so my best idea was simply to slip away unnoticed. But the persistent artist started dancing around me, trying to drag me into it. The music was barely audible, and he was already twirling. God forgive him. I told him twice I needed to step away, even snapped at him a bit, but he kept doing his little moves and wouldn't leave me alone. I gave him a little shove in the side, carefully, but he took it as flirting and grabbed my hand, trying to spin me around. I yanked my hand away, and at that exact moment, I heard something crash loudly. Everyone froze and turned toward the sound. I looked, too, into the far corner of the hall. There he was, looking at me from under lowered lashes, the muscles in his cheeks tensing, arms hanging at his sides, blood dripping from his left palm, shards of glass and startled waiters at his feet. I walked toward him slowly, probably from fear, and took his bleeding hand in silence. Under the size of the crowd and the stunned stare of the artist, I led Bill into Colin's office. That's where the first aid kit was. Still without a word, I closed the door, took the kit from the cabinet, and sat on the table. I motioned for Bill to give me his hand and started picking glass out of his palm with tweezers. He was breathing heavily above my head, as silent as before. What happened? I finally decided to break the tension. The glass shattered in my hand. It just shattered. It just did, yeah. That happens when people get angry. Glass can't handle it. You were angry? I was genuinely surprised. I'd somehow decided he didn't know how to be angry. Why? Who knows? Pissed off, he hissed above me. Once I'd removed all the shards, I reached for sterile wipes, but there weren't any in the kit. Wait, I'll go get, I started. But he suddenly stepped closer, moving between my legs. No, Bill said sharply, and his gaze hardened. Your bleeding won't stop, I tried again, but that didn't stop him. He leaned in slowly, and I could feel his tension, or whatever that was, rolling off him. Your turn to save me, he whispered. Ask me what I want. The muscles in his cheeks twitched, but there was no smile. What do you want? I squeaked like a mouse. You. He exhaled the word and pulled me against him. His bloody hand gripped my waist and lifted me off the table. With the other hand, he stroked my cheek, finally letting a smile appear. The next second, he was kissing me. Soft, fierce, wild. I swear, I think I climaxed right then and there. I wrapped my legs around his waist, my arms around his neck, and this delirious free fall of passion became the best moment of my life. Okay, I can die now, I thought. I don't need anything else. Well, maybe one more thing. I've wanted this since the first time I saw you, he said, pulling back for a second before taking my mouth again. You don't even remember when we met the first time, I protested when he drew back again. Just kiss me, damn it. It wasn't the shirt incident. It was long before that, on your very first day at the gallery. You were pouring me coffee and muttering under your breath about how anyone could drink tea with milk, because you don't drink tea or milk, and probably only the devil himself could have thought of mixing them together, I finished for him. I remembered my first day at the gallery, remembered grumbling about tea and milk under my breath while handing someone coffee. But I didn't remember him. Didn't remember it was Bill. After that, I spent half a day thinking about that drink and smiling to myself like an idiot. You can imagine how thrilled I was to get the chance to save you from that glass heading for your head, he said, hugging me so tightly it felt like his perfect abs might actually fuse into me. And again, I had no words. What do you even say to that? Do you still feel like an idiot next to me? He asked, smiling as he gently lowered me to the floor. A little? I pulled a face, mortified. You're Bill Ska. But I didn't finish. My gaze dropped to his hand, still covered in blood. The bleeding hasn't stopped, I cried. And your dress is covered in my blood now, he said, eyeing my once white dress, not so white anymore. Then he smiled again. Want to borrow my shirt? He kissed me again, just as hard, just as hungry. And I swear he purred under his breath. We need to treat your wound, or you'll bleed out and I won't have time to tell you. He smiled that perfect smile again, already anticipating my next words. "Come to me," he said, holding out his hand just as I turned toward the door. And here, my dear ones, is where I make my biggest mistake. The one I will regret for the rest of my life. I wake up. If you enjoyed this novella, please leave a like, subscribe, and share your thoughts or wishes in the comments. Your support means more than you know, and it helps this story live on.